You remember when we first met? You told me that I was a spoiled brat, and that you were hired to protect me and nothing more. You even said I shouldn't expect any personal sympathy, because as a bodyguard it made your job easier not to be friends with the client. And here you are, about to meet my dad and tell him you want to marry me. I'm so glad he decided to leave Tokyo for a while and come here to LA. I told him all about you, and he said he'd meet you. I'm so excited.
Hey guys, it's Matt here again with the video review of Red Steel. This is Ubisoft's premier first-person shooter for Wii. It's the title that a lot of you have been waiting for and looking forward to, so let's take a look at it. As I noted, Red Steel is a first-person shooter. It follows the story of Scott-san, a man whose fiancée has been kidnapped and her father murdered by the Japanese Yakuza. And it's up to you to travel from Los Angeles to Japan to avenge his murder and save her from the bad guys. It's a pretty cliche story, it's very straightforward, but for the purpose here, it actually works pretty well. Part of that is because the presentation is so nicely done, it's very well implemented. Ubisoft uses a series of cutscenes to tell the storyline, and I think they're a bit cheesy, they're a bit compressed, and therefore I'm not really keen on them. However, everything else about the presentation really works. Visually speaking, this is actually one of the prettier titles to grace Wii at launch. What you're going to find here are some varied locations, lots of technical effects like particle effects, lighting effects, destructible environments. It all comes together for some graphically dazzling moments. One thing I don't like about the visuals, though, is that many of the characters in the game have this cutout look to them. They have this glowing white background. I'm not sure what Ubisoft was going for here, but it really kind of gives everything a cardboardy style that I'm not really into. The game is actually fun, due in large to the presentation. You want to keep coming back to see just what's going to happen. Not only that, but it's got a great soundtrack from Tom Salta. The real problem I have with Red Steel, and it's a big one, are the control mechanics. Depending on how you look at it, they're either completely broken, or you could say the control just hasn't been truly tapped. The potential isn't fully there. I happen to fall somewhere in the middle. So for me, a person who expects responsive, tight, and quick FPS-like controls, you're just not going to find that in Red Steel, and that's a big disappointment. What you do get when you have a static screen and your enemies are directly in front of you is the ability to quickly target and shoot down your foes without really even trying. It's very intuitive, it's very quick, and it feels great. However, when you go to turn, you're going to run into some serious hurdles because it's a very slow, tedious, clunky, and sometimes just plain unresponsive process. That's really where Red Steel fails. You've got quick aiming and targeting controls, but when you want to turn on a dime or do a quick 180 to target an enemy, that's not going to happen. It's going to take you several seconds, and the entire time you're going to find that you're getting shot by foes, which is, as you know, not so fun. When you're not unloading Uzis or shotguns or pistols upon enemies, you'll be engaging in sword fight duels with opponents. You don't have one-to-one movement here, which would be ideal, but you can use the nunchuck and Wii Remote to swipe at enemies either vertically or horizontally. It's not incredibly deep, but you can do things like dodge to the left or right, parry, or deal out deadly sword swipes. For the most part, I don't have any complaints about the dueling, actually. It works pretty well. The only thing I would say is that when you're hitting an opponent, you don't really get that sense of oomph as if you're connecting with them all the time. I don't know how you would solve that, but I think maybe one-to-one somewhere in the future would really go a long way. Red Steel is one of those interesting and kind of difficult games to review because despite all of these great things it has going for it, it is at the core broken, or at least, not quite there. The control is a big problem for me, but then again, I have talked to friends who can get right past it and are having a really fun time with the game. Still, I have to think about everybody when I go to render a verdict, and bearing that in mind, the game got a 6.0, which is passable. We define passable as a game with more blemishes than it has strengths, but Red Steel is actually just the opposite. It has quite a bit of strengths and very few weaknesses. The problem, however, is that one weakness is a whopper, and it's hard to get past. Still, I would recommend checking it out if you can. Give it a rental, see if it's your cup of tea, and go from there. For the full written review, check IGN.com.